Hello, and welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I'm your host, Maria Davis-Pierre, licensed mental health counselor and the CEO and founder of Autism in Black. Today's guest is Tiana Townsend, a licensed marriage and family therapist, Amazon best-selling author, and the founder of Wiseling Consulting, a trauma-informed consulting firm that supports nonprofits, ministries, schools, and organizations in building healthier, more responsive communities. Tiana's work is deeply rooted in both professional expertise and lived experience. She is a single mother to her son True, who is nonvocal and communicates using a AAC device. And that journey shapes how she talks about autism, mental health, and the realities many Black families navigate. Tiana speaks powerfully about the intersection of culture, gender expectations, and stigma. And she's especially passionate about calling Black men into deeper presence in the village. Her voice brings honesty, reflection, and a powerful invitation for all of us to think differently about support, family, and community. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Autism in Black show. I'm very excited with today's guest. If you attended our second annual Black Boys, Men, and Fathers Summit, then this face and voice is familiar to you. I want to welcome Tiana to the Autism in Black podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share this space with you.
Oh, I'm so ready for this conversation because if you weren't a part of the summit, then you missed out on something special because her session absolutely amazing. And I'm just grateful to have you here with us today. But for listeners who may be meeting you for the first time, can you share who you are in your own words and what led you to the work that you're doing at the intersection of mental health, trauma-informed care, and autism advocacy?
Yes. And thank you also for just the warm words that you said about the session. It truly was an honor to be connected with Autism in Black and to have the opportunity to be a presenter. What led me to the work and to the intersection truly was my own experience of living. Being from Richmond, California, and not seeing many mental health professionals, not truly even knowing what that meant in my own little world, but also seeing the impacts of broken people and truly just folks doing the best they could with what they had in the moments. And me being that little girl of like, what is going on here and trying to make the best of it myself. I am a daughter of a father who had his own bouts of childhood neglect and abuse and him losing his father at just a few months old due to a work-related accident and then having drug-related issues into his adulthood and him wanting to show up so much for me in the ways that he could, and also being very much so flawed, but taking the steps that he could. And then as I got older and in my work, again, in my community, seeing again these broken people and wanting to do the best I could to bridge the gaps. And also in the education system, seeing many times the ball being dropped for myself and my peers. When I got old enough to say, hey, how can I make a change? Doing those psychology classes, seeing like, oh, I can kind of apply some of these strategies here. And I would tell people, I feel like being a therapist kind of chose me. Even though I was the youngest person, a lot of times in my class, I skipped third grade, so that caused me to be younger than a lot of my peers. They would come to ask me a lot of questions and a lot of advice. And I'm like, y'all know y'all older than me, right? But finding myself to be kind of that mother hen of the group, I felt like being the therapist kind of chose me in the sense, but I leaned into it and wanting to make sure that I could be the best that I could be. So being the therapist and getting my master's degree that allowed me to get the skills necessary. And I always felt like I was going to work with kids and help bridge the gap between communities and families and in the education system. I had my whole spiel down, and
Mm,
I also worked in substance use. I had an advisor at that time that said, well, for your first practicum, just do something out of the water because you know you're going to end up working with kids and you have to do 2 practicums in school. So for your first one, do something that you never thought you would do. And I fell in love also with that work. And I
mm,
worked with something very extreme harm reduction work. So I'm working with people who are still using substances, helping them create these plans that still included active use of drugs, and also men who have sex with men. So they had very, these lifestyles that had very high risks attached to
mhm.
them. And I loved that work. And I left there and started working with K through 6th graders. It was a huge shift. And I truly believe that combining all of those skills and all of that work just helped me become a more well rounded, understanding person.
Mm,
All of that came, and then I became a mother of a son that had a little bit of speech, and
mhm,
then he regressed to
mm,
none.
mhm,
So there became the beginning of my autism journey. He's now 5 years old. We've been through the PECS boards, and now we work with an AAC device, and he elopes and is very stimmy, loves to jump, loves movement. And now we are navigating the world and the systems that are not made for him. So
mm.
here we are. And
Oh,
this is where I am. It's
there
been a
is
journey.
so much similarity between our journeys. I have I was a clinical director of a substance use program. I've worked in the schools, wanting to help what, they deem as at-risk youth, right? And then became a mother, and my daughter, who was speaking, regressed and wasn't speaking, right? And it was like, there's the beginning of our journey in this autism world, and then having a set of twins and both of them being neurodivergent, getting my diagnosis. It's the journey that's there. So I anytime I meet clinicians who have such a similar background to mine, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what led you to this work, because it's not only professional but it's personal for us, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times that personal is really what is that motivating driving force. And I know you show up in so many roles: therapist, consultant, author, and mother to your son, True. How has your journey with True shaped the way you understand healing and community, and what families navigate, how they navigate not autism?
My goodness. It has most definitely shattered the what it once was and
Mm,
rebuilt it
mm,
from its foundation. It reminds me of kintsugi, I think is how you say the Japanese art form of taking the broken pottery and then
yes,
putting it back together by using like gold,
yes, yes.
where what it once was, it has a resemblance of it. However, it becomes something so different. It's a picture of redemption to me,
Mhm,
where the picture of what perfect family or community once looked like, it kind of needed to be shattered in a sense
mhm,
because there isn't a perfect in the first place.
yeah.
And I believe that without the exceptionalities that come with my kiddo or our children, I wouldn't have had the opportunity
Mm,
to have the lens that I now have.
mm,
I see now, because of the journey with True, just how much more enriching
yes,
life is when you actually slow down. I see now truly how rich those present moments are. As therapists, we talk about, be in the moment, ground your feet,
Mhm.
smell the roses, all of that, feel the breeze. And truly that's nice. And it truly is nice, right?
Mhm.
And it's something else to let everything go
Yeah.
and really practice being in this moment because it is rich.
Mhm.
The sensory component of autism, especially for like my kid who's very sensory seeking and loves to walk in rocks and like sand, those present moments are everything and they're layered. So they are very multifaceted.
Mhm.
And that's the same for family. That's the same for connection. And as a therapist, I'm always like, everything is related. Relationships are everywhere. And even in like those 5-second interactions that he may have, or when he reaches out for strangers and like touches someone's face, and I'm just like, oh, he must truly feel your spirit because he doesn't do that with everyone, first of all. And honestly, in those moments, I'm just like, this is what community is all about. When someone just slows down or just stops to interact with him and takes that moment to be like, hey, I see that you're showing up differently than most people here, but I'm going to stop on my busy day because I'm in the Bay Area. So, we're hustling and bustling over here, kind of similar to New York, but I'm going to take this time out of my day to pick the flower with you because this kid is just grabbing my hand and bringing me over here for some reason who I don't know. It's truly giving me an opportunity to rewire everything that I've been taught and shown.
That's so powerful, and I definitely can relate to all of what you're saying. I'm sure our listeners can too. And I know you've spoken about the idea that raising a Black autistic child was never meant to be done alone. When you talk about the village model, what does that look like in practice today, especially for families who may feel isolated or unsupported?
Ooh, it's first of all, the village model is not something that is the system is currently made for, I'll say.
Hmm.
The way in which the world is ran, to choose the village model is resistance in itself.
Mm.
It's not easy to because these appointments are in the middle of the day, first of all.
Hello. Hello.
and listen, the way that the cost of living is, to take the time off, and especially if you're like myself, a therapist who has a private practice, there
Hmm.
is no bucket of PTO. So if I'm not seeing a client, I'm not getting paid. And
Hmm.
I also want to have the capacity, the wherewithal to show up for my clients, but also to show up for my kiddo. I want to have dinner. I'm not trying to have 7 p.m. sessions or sessions after he falls asleep. So the fact, and the same for my village, so to be able to be intentional about showing up for others, it's making that intentional choice that I'm going to sacrifice something else, which probably is going to hit me in my pocket. For
Hmm.
example, I'm going to work less is
Hmm.
is a choice. I'm going to show up in this. I'm going to have less social time, for example, because I want to show up for my family member or my loved one who's autistic.
Yeah.
So to have village, or to choose to be a village member, is it means intentionality.
Mm.
That's the biggest thing. And I will say that when I was going through the assessment portion, and when True was first like emerging with these signs, I was living in Las Vegas,
Mm.
and I was away from the majority of my family is in California. So I truly was feeling alone. I have one brother there, but he's more of like that introverted one. He was already away from the family for about like 14 years at that point. Like he even when we were all living together, he was the one that was like in his room playing video games. That's when you saw Tashawn, so I felt truly alone. And even in those points, my babysitter at that time was like, "Hey, like, make sure that you reach out. Like, you don't have to do this alone." And I appreciate her because, again, that was my village saying, like, I'm pushing in. I recognize that you're trying to isolate because sometimes us as parents, we may have that guilt,
Yeah.
especially when it's early on, of like, did I do something wrong? Or why
Mm,
isn't my kid, interacting with the other children? Or is this a sign? I know for me, when True first progressed and I was seeing less word or hearing less words, I'm thinking trauma because that's my history, right? I was working with more trauma kiddos back in my experience. So I'm trying to assess for that, and I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? I'm trying to check off all the boxes. So I'm I'm trying. I was going into my shell, and I think that for those who are around family members or around those parents, that in recognizing like, oh, the parents are starting to go in their shell, they're not really talking much.
mm,
Please continue to be consistent and just show up in those ways,
mhm.
because there may be some signs of grief going on. There may, what we can say, depression trying to set in.
Yeah.
They might not say like, "Hey, I'm sinking, I'm drowning," but they're probably in their head of just like, "What's going on? How can I fix this?" Fix, when that's really not it. But those things still creep in. So being intentional about how can I show up and taking that inventory of like, what can I actually give? Because
Mm,
maybe you don't have the time. But let's say you can't take the time off. Those DoorDash, hey, let me just send dinner. That's a great way to show up. And I know for me, as a mom of an autistic kiddo who doesn't still have like a lot of hands-on support, I might
mhm.
not be able to make it to a lot of my friends' birthday parties and stuff when they invite me, but I sure will send a card and a dinner or a gift and say, hey, I'm still going to show up in these ways. So taking that inventory and being intentional about community is key.
And I love those intentional examples about rebuilding, that sense of shared village and shared care. Because, like you said, with this modern life and systemic barriers have really disrupted that communal structure for a lot of people, and here too. And we have to be especially intentional about how we navigate. I got three kids, and sometimes I'm not going to be able to be at every single function. But like you said, I will be intentional in the ways that I do show up and can show up and be there. And the same with my friends of how they can show up for me. Because sometimes I just want to talk and not talk about my kids, right? Like, let me just forget I got kids for like 5 minutes and talk about something completely unrelated, right? So it is that the intentional ways of showing up that truly matter. So I love that you gave those examples because it means a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know when community is present in meaningful ways, how does it shift that experience for parents and caregivers, especially when you're navigating the emotional, the practical, and the systemic realities of raising a Black autistic child?
Yes, it lightens the load. It lets us know, like, I'm not in this alone. Like, yes, I might be doing the heavy lifting, but I got someone that's rooting for me, and not just in this passive way, but in active, real ways. Like, okay, yeah, I gotta still change the pull ups even though he's 5. And yeah, I might still be making the meals, but guess what? Somebody sent me dinner. Guess what? Somebody did put 5 on that bill. Somebody actually did clear out my Amazon package. Someone actually did send those wipes. Somebody actually did, help me fill out that paperwork. And
Mm,
those things do help. Somebody did just call and just let me vent. And
yeah.
that was great. Those things actually did help. Somebody did drive and drop him off for ABA care. Those things help
Mm,
so much. And we need to make sure that we don't, as parents, make sure I got to have this S on my chest and I can take care of it all.
mm, mm,
Making, calling, putting the call out does not make you weak
mm.
at all.
Or you might need to repeat that for some
Yes.
Black women, and not only Black women, but ones who are raising their children in single motherhood, because I know, not from experience, but in those I'm in community with, I see and I'm like, girl, please, I am here, right? Because sometimes it's so systematic of how we've been socialized to not ask for help as Black women. And I know, for you, as a single mother raising a non-vocal autistic Black little boy who communicates through AAC, what are some of those assumptions or cultural narratives that you've had to challenge both within, the systems and then within our community as being a single mother?
Yes, it's challenging. I'll even say that sometimes I do still struggle with. I go in and I want to make sure I make the point like, oh, I was married. Don't get it wrong. I was married. Like I feel like I need to
Hmm.
prove something, especially in the systems because I feel like that's going to give me some right. But the fact of the matter is the the people in the systems are going to look at me whatever way they're going to look at me because they have their prejudices no matter
Oof,
what I do,
oof, mm,
no matter what we do.
hmm.
We already know we can do two times as much and still be looked at as doing half
Ooh, mm,
as what we are expected to do.
hmm, hmm,
So I have to sit with that and recognize, okay, what do I feel like I need to be doing for my kiddo? What's the best that I can do truly today and give myself grace and meet myself there? I had to stop trying to see myself through how I think they're going to see me because that's a losing battle at the end of the day no matter what. After I was able to get through that, and I say was, but some days it still creeps in. You know, it's a continuous battle. Recognize that okay, now how do I want to move forward?
hmm.
I have community, I have help, and I want to identify the professionals, the people that are in my corner that I know that I can lean on that will support me. I want to get with the parent care network and those folks that I know will support me. And then those in my community, my best friend, my church community, those that I know will show up in the ways that they can. Hey, can you print these out for me? Hey, can you fill this out for me? Hey, can you do the drop off? Hey, can you watch them for one day this weekend? And I know for me, because my kiddo's nonverbal, it's that fear of safety. Will somebody try to touch him because they know he can't say anything and tell me? All of those concerns, and those are real and valid.
Hmm.
Making sure that you truly keep in your mind, okay, how do I know what's the thing I want to make sure of for safety? What are the questions that I have? And also just all right, maybe we just do a little play date for a couple hours, fill them out, having that relationship and rapport, even when it's the behavior technicians, having those sessions and you're close and you're building that connection, having the nanny cams, whatever you need to do, because the fact of the matter is you deserve rest. So
Hmm.
making sure that you set those parameters up so that you can take that break. Me doing that has helped me start to, take more time for myself as a single mom.
I love that. And I have to constantly remind myself, like, rest is not an award. Like, it's deserved. Like, everybody deserves rest. It's not something I have to be like, oh, I put in 5 hours of, let me go get this rest now, because that is really what in the Black community especially is a heavy burden on us. Like, we have to do this so we can get this reward of rest. And I love that you also said that the systems are going to have their thoughts no matter what, and their perceptions of us no matter what. So we have to learn to let that go. And I know that's something I'm still working on as a Black woman myself, because people at the school have said, "Oh, your kids do they have the same father? They're twins. They're, they're little twins."
That's how that works, right?
They're twins. Like, what's going on here? But because I'm a black woman, they have a certain a thought, right? And it's like, oh my God, I don't have to explain to these people. No, they don't. They don't.
Mm,
They don't got the same daddy.
right.
No. Like what is it your concern? I'm here to talk about some IEPs. I'm here
Right.
to talk about some 504 plans, right? And a lot of times that gets so lost and people do not understand that racism and ableism is so intertwined for what we have to navigate. And it's so important we have these conversations because we are not dealing with this in isolation, and it sometimes will bring that shame, like, oh my God, this is what they're thinking of me, and when they're thinking that about a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't speak on it and if we don't have conversations like this, it can lead to that shame and that isolation and not wanting to reach out because, oh my God, this is what they think of me. We got to learn to leave that to the side and do what we got to do for us and our children. So I really appreciate you being so honest and so vulnerable because it's needed. And I know
Yes.
that your work often explores how cultural expectations, gender roles, mental health stigma influence how Black families experience autism. How have those dynamics shown up in your own journey, and what have they taught you about resilience and truth telling?
Mm. I've had an interesting relationship with resilience. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it used to be a word that was like nails on a chalkboard for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm tired of being resilient. I hate this word. I want us to be able to be identified as something else than resilient. It's like it can be like this box that us as black folks get stuck in, that we can take whatever you put us
Mm-hmm.
under. Like, ugh. As I continue this life, I recognize that it truly is a strength. It's like two sides to one coin. I still some days it's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
resilient again, you know. And truly I can lean into it and recognize like, yeah, this won't break me either. And that
Yeah.
is resilience,
Mm-hmm.
naming it, how it is. And this is like that triple disadvantage that I talked about during the summit, where like for True there is the triple disadvantage of gender,
Yes.
of his disability, and of his education. Like there is those three things are against him right now, or his
Mm-hmm.
race, I'm sorry, the race, the disability, and race, disability, and gender. There we go. And walking through those, being his advocate, now I recognize that I have to be courageous
Oof.
using my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And a piece of that is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Another piece of that is keeping those systems accountable to what they say their mission and vision is.
Oof.
And a lot of that is uncomfortable. A bit for myself,
Mm-hmm.
because it's gonna put me in again that place of angry black woman.
Yep.
Even though I have the smile on my face and I can be as pleasant as possible, it's going to put them in a very uncomfortable place as
Mm-hmm.
well, because I'm keeping them accountable to, hey, you say this in your mission statement. You say this is your goal. However, this is how you're moving, and this is incongruent. So
Mm.
why is that? And here we go. Ableism,
Yes.
racism.
Yes. Mm. Yeah, I mean,
And I
it's
let them sit there, you know.
yeah, hold that accountability, boy. That thing will bring out the ugly in some of these people. Like you're like, I'm just you're the one who said this. I'm just saying, hey, this is what you said. It's not what you're doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
what's going on here? And that accountability. Oh my God, like you said, it will bring out the the nasty in some people, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said, like that it's a fine line with resilience with myself as well, because I feel like sometimes people be like toxic positivity toxic resilient. I don't want to bounce back from everything. I don't want to put up by the bootstraps for everything, right? I want to be upset and angry. But at the same time, I really got to hold these people accountable for my children and what they're doing and trying to make it easier for them than what it's been for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard sometimes doing that and navigating that because this world, unfortunately, the systems within it are not built for us.
Right.
It's not,
Exactly.
and it's hard. So I love that you touch on those things because I'll be like, listen, I'll come up in here and knock everybody's stuff off their table.
Oh, I feel like it. I feel like it a lot of times. And when I work with families and individuals, I say, okay, so there's a place we got to stay present sometimes, and then there's a place where we can process our emotions around that because there are emotion there are things that's gonna get emotional rise out of you, and those things are valid. Your emotional responses are valid. However, sometimes it's not the time for that because it'll work against you in relationships when you're navigating the system and all of that. So let's stay present and we'll process later, right?
Mm,
So take note of those.
yeah.
See what your body is doing. And it's okay if you need, okay, let me just take a break real quick. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Do what you need to do to calm down, chill, come
Hmm.
back, right? Then come to your therapy session. Let's process that. Call
Come
me
on.
afterwards, whatever it is, if it's not in a therapy capacity. And then let's process that. Let's scream. Let's do what we need to do so that you can move that out of your body also, because that's key. We don't want to stuff it. When we have all those emotions and they just get stuffed, I say it's like a coin bag. And if we just keep on putting our emotions in there and they're like coins and we never empty it out and process those, sooner or later the bag is going to burst and
Yeah.
it's just going to spill out on whoever it is. Might be our kid, unfortunately, because they stubbed our toe or then stemmed and hit us one time in the eye too much, and we just can't take it no more because our bag is full. So we
Mhm.
have to make sure that we get into those moments where we can process and empty out our emotional coin bag in those safe spaces
Mm.
so that we don't just burst and explode when it's not a good time for us to really do that.
Come on with a word. Now, see, I'm usually the one on here talking about therapy as a clinician, but when I bring my colleagues on here and up, y'all, you see, it's not just me. Therapy is so essential and so important, and it's for everyone. Everyone.
Yes.
Like, you don't,
Yes.
please don't think that you are like, oh, I know, I don't need. No, you do, because we do need those spaces of non-bias a
Yes.
lot of times, and then the space to be able to be like, yeah, I do need to get this one off my chest right here. So thank you for hitting that nail on the head, because usually I'm like, yeah, y'all need to go to therapy.
Right,
You
please.
have to say it, y'all. I didn't even have to say it. As we wrap up, what message would you want Black parents, especially those who may feel they're carrying this journey alone, to hold on to during the moments when the weight of everything feels overwhelming?
Know that you don't have to do it all alone, that you
Mm,
have community, you have people that you can reach out to, and that what your children need the most is you, and you not burnt out, not you at your wits end, but you at your healthiest capacity. And how you do that is by filling your cup first
mm,
and by investing in you. So take care of yourself because you matter.
mm. I love that. Oh, thank you so much. And I also want to give you your flowers. I want to thank you for being vulnerable, for speaking into us, for blessing us with your presence for this episode because it was needed. I feel good. I know y'all gonna be feeling good when y'all sitting here and get to the end as well because sometimes we do need it. So thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
And also, where can the people find you? Because they're going to be wanting the therapy. They're going to be wanting to know, how can I get in touch with Tiana? So please let them know where they can find you, and we will have it in the show notes for you all as well.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at I am Tiana T. You can also go to my website at iamtianat.com and I'll be there.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.